Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. It always strikes me on the first day of a retreat how how remarkably long, how many hours there are in the first day. It's 24 hours since this retreat began. It's got to be more than one day. It feels like at least a week. But time is a very subjective quality, isn't it? I remember one time after when Ajahn Vasudi had been staying at our monastery in California, and someone was sitting at the airport with him, and he was about to set off to continue his travels and to go to Canada, and they asked him, "So what was your feeling about your time in America?" And he said, "It was an eternity that went by in a flash." It's very wise. And a succinct way of putting it, isn't it? Because so often that's the way we experience it, that time has these strange qualities. Often beginning a retreat, it's the contrast between having so many hours of the day that are open to and encouraging us to pay attention to the contents of our minds, to pay attention to the feelings of the body, and with not a lot else going on. Perhaps trying to decide whether you're going to go for Bengal spice or peppermint at the next tea time, or looking forward to the the next phase of the day. But there's not a lot going on. I mean, the retreats are designed to have as little as possible going on. They're deliberately constructed to be to create as simple a backdrop as possible, so that we can see the habits and projections of the mind displayed clearly and obviously. That's why we have such a plain, simple routine. It's deliberately, studiedly boring. So if you're being interested, then you're missing the point. So the effect of that we experience at the first couple of days of the retreat is a stark contrast between what's been occupying our days in the run-up to the retreat, where we're juggling our families, our jobs, comings and goings, all of the telephone calls you've got to make, the emails you've got to answer, the bills you might have to pay or you might not have to pay, and deciding which ones can wait, and so on and so on and so on. 1,000 decisions a day, and all of the different people, and engaging, all the having to be the kind of efficient co-worker, the compassionate mother, the consoling friend, the stern authority, all these different roles that we have to play and enact and relating with other people. Just driving a car. just functioning in society, there's an awful lot of engagement and output and activity. We have to be so many different characters. So then the shift from that to coming on into a retreat situation is quite a rude awakening, because all of that momentum, as we all know, carries on. And so all of those encounters start happening internally. All of those different characters, but we don't notice it. We just think we're going through our day. But then when we suddenly draw to a close our interactions with others and engagement and relating with others in such an active way, then we just begin to look at the patterns of our own consciousness, what goes through our minds. We begin to see the mind reacting as a sort of stern authority, or the kindly friend, or the kind of the hopeless case, the hopeless wreck, holding it all together, falling apart. The wise, studious meditator, the kind of helpless, infatuated demon. The whole array of different characters. It's quite remarkable, isn't it? Just during the course of the day. How many people are there in this plot anyway? We seem to be able to experience so many moods and so many different feelings. And maybe I'm just presuming too much. Maybe you think, what's he talking about, different characters? I've just been me. It's just the same old me all day long. But I suspect that's probably not the case for all of us. Huh? Swings of inspiration and gladness, moments of dullness, depression, times of clarity and alertness, times of confusion. Just as the day and the night come and go. Our moods, feelings, thoughts, different mind states, they come and go. That's their nature. That's what they're supposed to do. Also, by my reckoning, today was May Day, 1st May. So, just in that, it crossed my mind today. May Day comes spring fertility rites, maypole dancing, or International Workers' Day. You could be, so the mind can be celebrating the joys of spring. Amaravati in the springtime, dripping lushness, blossom everywhere, and kind of warm, moist air, everything's so green, incredibly green, and lush, and the mind sort of getting all inspired and enthused and delighted with the spring. Or maybe it's the other kind of May Day, which is help. We're out in this ship, and I've got 3 major leaks here. The boiler just blew out, and we're listing desperately to starboard. Mayday, Mayday. One of the great skills that meditation offers us, or that we can develop through this kind of practice, is the capacity to learn to listen to our moods, our thoughts, to attend to what we experience, and to find that place, that attitude whereby we're not suppressing or pushing away, nor are we buying into or believing in everything that goes through our minds. One thing that I found, it took me quite a few years to recognize it, I fully admit, but one of the things I'd like to point out is that to people, isn't it strange how we assume that everything that goes through our minds is true? It's some kind of valid representation of reality. Isn't that peculiar? Why should everything that I think, why should every judgment that I make be correct? Pretty strange, isn't it? How we think that we go around, the mind sort of makes all these evaluations and judgments and choices. This is good, that's bad, I like this, I don't like that, that's beautiful, that's ugly, this is right, that's wrong, this should be this way, it shouldn't be that way. But if you think about it, it's probably about a 6 billion to 1 odds that we should have the one mind in the world that continually makes accurate judgments. Because certainly, all our minds don't agree, right? So it's about 6 billion to 1 that mine is the mind that gets everything right, even if there is one, which is decidedly unlikely, right? But that's the way we relate to our minds. When our mind says, this is great, this is wonderful, we believe it. When our mind says, this is terrible, this is bad, this is wrong, we believe it. When the mind says, this is good, or this is bad, this is unimportant, we just believe it. Now, you might not think that's a problem, but as we watch our minds, and we begin to see that it's those kind of unconscious judgments and aspects of identification, the way that we continually opinionate and frame our experience of the world. This is a huge cause for sort of discord and unrest within us. Because, of course, as I was saying, the judgments that we have don't always comply with everybody else's. That someone, you might think that what you're doing is completely perfect and normal, and then the person next to you is thinking, how can he keep breathing like that? Why does she have to walk that way? And you think, I'm walking mindfully. At last I got my mindful walking practice finally together. And meanwhile you're unwittingly driving somebody completely berserk. One of the people in our community was doing a 3-month retreat at a Buddhist retreat center in Massachusetts, Insight Meditation Society, and it was very wet weather, and the only shoes that she had were a pair of clogs, wooden-soled clogs. And she hadn't thought she had some rope-soled sandals, some wooden-soled clogs, and the rope-soled sandals were getting soaking wet, so she put the clogs on. So this flurry of notes. They have a big bulletin board culture at IMS. So there's this flurry of notes about that person who's disturbing the retreat with their heedless clogging. They're kind of clog dancing. They're kind of noisy footwear, and so she was hit by this kind of blizzard of notes, and so I thought, oh dear, well, what can I do? And so she put up a little notice saying, well, I'm the clog wearer, and I have size 5 feet, so anyone who's got any waterproof shoes that they could spare that they'd like to lend, I'd be very happy to wear them. And within a very few hours she had 15. 15. Somehow people had that many. There were that many people with 5 size feet who had spare waterproof shoes with them. So the way that we perceive the world, or what we conceive of as right and good, it varies, doesn't it? Back in the early days at Chithurst Monastery, used to be very sort of cold and drafty in the shrine room much of the time. Had never quite got the heating system figured out in the early days, and I remember vividly one day there was Ajahn Sujito, who has a very warm metabolism, and Ajahn Amaro, who has an extremely cool metabolism, and they were sitting next to each other on the meditation platform by the shrine, and Tanavara was there with his 3 jumpers and his thick robe and his sangati wrapped round him and a hat on, and Ajahn Sujito, and still sort of huddled and shivering, and Ajahn Sujito was sitting right next to him, and he had a bare shoulder and was sort of red cheeked and was flushed with the heat. It was an amazing sight. It's side by side. Or is this room hot or is it cold? we say, well, it's hot, of course. Hot? Your mind is freezing. How can you say it's freezing? It's boiling over. Well, it depends on how we perceive it, doesn't it? So that it's a great blessing that for us that within one of the aspects of Buddhist meditation practice is that it teaches us to recognize that a judgment is just a judgment, an opinion is just an opinion, and that even though we might be absolutely certain that this is not an opinion, this is a fact. It is hot. No, it's cold. Look, here's the thermometer. No matter how absolutely certain we are that we have that capacity to recognize, well, even if it seems absolutely right, this is just a judgment, this is an opinion, this is a feeling, this is the way that the mind likes to judge the situation. So with all of the different moods and different feelings that we can experience, whether it's the glorious sort of spring festival May Day, or it's the sinking ship May Day, or anything in between that we're experiencing, there's that capacity that we have to listen to that, to attend to that, to just say, this is the mind panicking, or this is the mind being enthusiastic. This is the feeling of delight and rapture. This is the feeling of gnashing misery. This is the feeling of complete mediocrity. This is a feeling. It comes, it goes, it changes. This is an aspect of nature being experienced here and now. That's all. It's not a big thing. Nothing special. So this is a tremendous blessing. For myself, I find this is a great and wonderful gift, that we can develop this capacity just to listen, to be able to not ignore the contents of our minds or just dismissing our experience, but learning to take it in context, learning to not see what goes through our mind as absolute truth, but as judgments that we make, that something that might have a relative truth or a relative importance. There's some connection to the material world or the world of actuality, but we don't buy into that. We don't look at that as anything absolute, permanent, solid, independent. So during the course of this time together, our retreat, then hopefully this is something that we can develop more and more, because it's really this kind of recognition that supports the heart being able to let go. Because what happens when we are, the mind is getting enthused about something, getting carried away, and you think, this is just a pleasant feeling. This is what it feels like when everything goes right. Then there's a moment of relaxation, of the quality of ease. In a way, we might think, we're spoiling the fun. I was enjoying being carried away there. But actually it makes it more delightful, more genuinely beautiful when we let go of it. Similarly, when we're experiencing something painful or difficult, that recognition of this is actually just a feeling. There's nothing wrong with it. This is just a reaction. The ear hears sound, and the mind comes up with a judgment. This is actually just a sound, and then there's just the mood that comes with that. The noise of the clogs striking the floor, or somebody's breath, or the rain going down our neck. That recognition of, this is just a feeling. This is something that I don't like. This is what I always try and avoid. This is what it feels like. And that moment of recognition, then that quality of letting go of the unconscious clinging that's been going on being released, then there's a natural ease and freedom that comes with that. And even if it seems very minor or very insignificant, it's that simple process that all of Buddhist meditation is centered around. The fact that the difficulties in life are generated by the habit of clinging, and that when the clinging stops, then life gets better. Even though we might still have the water trickling down our neck, or that the person's still walking around in wooden shoes. But it ceases to be a problem. It ceases to be something that the mind is contending against, and that it ceases to be something that's wrong with the universe in an absolute way. And so then we as we let go of it, we begin to see, like I was saying last night, we're not looking at it as absolutely sort of evil or wrong or terrible, but okay, can something be done about this? Okay, something may be able to be done. So you make a move, a gesture to adjust the world if you can. You tighten your collar, or you write a note to the clog wearer. And if that has a good effect, fine. If it doesn't have a good effect, well, so be it. Because it's the mind that's saying, if only this irritation wasn't there, as I was saying this afternoon, if only I didn't have this pain in my knee, if only there wasn't that irritating noise, if only my back wasn't aching, then I'd be happy. That's all I'm asking for. Oh Lord, I promise I'll never ask for anything ever again. Just take this pain away. So, if you'll forgive me this mentioning, Ajahn Kongret has a sore back, very painful back. So we were discussing this issue earlier today. So the mind goes, if only I didn't have my sore back, everything would be fine. I'd be completely happy. I wouldn't want anything else. Is that right? Yeah, that's right. So this afternoon he came to me and said, oh, toothache. Actually said, buat fun. Toothache. So I wasn't glad that he had toothache, but it was also displayed that principle very accurately. But, so it's the problem is that we don't learn to listen to the mind. We buy into it. We kind of believe its messages. So it's not a matter of dismissing them, but just recognizing, well, this is the mind giving me a message. And we learn to leave it at that. I've been very impressed, quite honestly, with how still and peaceful the hall is. First day of the retreat, usually there's considerably more extensive kind of squirming and groaning and general agitation in the air. So it's remarkably quiet and peaceful. So you might, even as I say these words, you might be thinking, quiet and peaceful. Yeah. Either you were hearing all kinds of things that I wasn't, or that you think that your mind was so noisy that that was not high on your list of perceptions. But nevertheless, it seemed very, very tranquil, very, very calm in here. So maybe it's already the case that you've all been finding a way to work with the uncomfortable feelings and the aches and pains in the body. But as I was saying earlier today, it's so helpful to be able to notice that this same capacity of the mind to make things completely solid and real, so that we take an ache in our leg, or a pain in the back, or some kind of physical discomfort as we're sitting, and to fixate upon that we think that's in the way of my meditation. If only it wasn't for this feeling. Or it can be mental as well, this obsessive thought, or or some sound that we hear around us. But using a physical feeling is probably the best example for us, because what happens, as we all are probably aware, is that the body unconsciously resists that painful feeling. So we're trying to concentrate on our breath, and there's this pain in my knee that's getting in the way, and so we sort of want the pain to get out of the way so I can get back to my breath. I'm busy here. Sorry, just get out of the way. I'm supposed to be with my breath. So that then there's a sort of dismissive, negative, intolerant attitude can be conjured up in relationship to that feeling. And along with the mental attitude, as the body tenses against that. What happens when we feel pain is the body resists it and tenses up against it. And so, just as with physical pain, when you realize that's what's happening, and then you follow that kind of pattern whereby you recognize, oh, this is not in the way of the meditation, this is the meditation. Let's just forget the breath for a couple of minutes and let this pain in my knee be the object of meditation. Because, we only focus on the breath so that we can pay attention to the present moment. So, well, hey, why not just... If the pain in your knee is keeping your attention in the present, then that'll do, right? So set the breath aside for a few moments, and then feel that sensation. What's there? And we notice there's that. It's always striking to me. Like, look at that. That's amazing. The thigh muscles are all tightened up, and the tendons around the knee are all tight, and that there's a whole pile of tension being generated around that. So what we find is that when we actually bring the quality of acceptance and relaxation to that, we let the muscles around that painful area relax. Then the leg drops a little bit, the tension dissolves somewhat, and so we begin to see that, to our amazement, that the causes of the pain, which is which unwittingly that we were contributing to by tensing up against it, when we relax, then the causes of the pain itself are actually diminished. So what might have been a sort of level 6 pain drops to a level 3 or 4, maybe even a 2. There's still some pain there, but then also cultivating that quality of acceptance. And again, to stress, we're not trying to pretend that we like it. We're not saying that we are looking for that pain, or, oh, goody, goody. There's that glorious wrenching ache in my right knee again. We're not trying to make it, pretend it's delightful. But what we see is that there can be that ache in the knee, or that pain in the back, or wherever it might be located. And there can be complete peacefulness with that. There can be a completely open-hearted, accepting attitude towards that feeling. It's still not pleasant. It's painful. It's not wanted. It's not likable. But it's here. And then that peacefulness comes from the attitude of, this is absolutely not a problem. This belongs. This is part of the way things are. And so we begin to see that's, in a way, this is what the Buddha's teaching points to, because it's the anguishing around feelings. It's not just the painful sensation itself that is the dukkha that the Buddha was talking about in the Four Noble Truths. But the dukkha that can be dispelled, the suffering that can be dispelled completely, and our lives can be completely free of, is the anguishing and fretting and negotiating that happens around any kind of experience. That's the dukkha that is dissolved by wisdom and by non-clinging, by letting go. Even the Buddha experienced physical pain. If you look at the suttas, particularly in his old age, the Buddha had a severe back pain. And when he was sick and had different illnesses, he would have abdominal pains and such things, just like the rest of us. So it wasn't as though by being a fully enlightened Buddha that the body was totally free of all uncomfortable feeling. As in the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, the discourse about the Buddha's final days, he says my body is like an old cart held together with straps, just kind of bolted together and held by sort of strings and bits of this and that. So the only way I can feel a physical ease is by absorbing the mind into the sunyata vihara, the kind of emptiness, concentration on emptiness. So, meaning that if he's paying attention to his body, it hurts. There's pain there. So that if you're, if you're feeling like, maybe if I really meditate well, if I just get this together, then, no matter how bad my aches and pains are, if I really get this meditation thing down, then I'll find that way that just dissolves the pain completely. Well, you should probably go for morphine in that respect. Because what Buddhist practice can do is it can't dispel every ounce of uncomfortable feeling or every painful experience, physical or mental, in our lives. But what it can do is it can enable us to recognize that none of this needs to be a problem. Because even when the Buddha's body was racked with physical pain, he was not suffering because of it. He was not making a problem out of it. There was still the unremitting experience of peace and clarity, even though his body was in extreme pain. So when we begin to get a sense for how this works with the physical body, and that when we find the body in a state of kind of imbalance, so we're sort of tensed up against something, or if the mind is very dull and listless, and we find ourselves kind of nodding or sort of drooping over, sometimes we can have a feeling if there's a lot of concentration and not much energy. When the samadhi factor is not balanced with virya, with energy, we can feel that we're very peaceful. We can feel the mind is very kind of still and calm, and we can feel like, oh great, my meditation is really coming together. I remember years ago when I was a novice at Wat Pananachat in Thailand. I think I was an anagarika actually. I said to one of the other novices, my meditation seems to be so much better in the morning. In the evening I'm really uncomfortable, and my legs really ache, and we would sit flat on the concrete with no cushions or foam mats or anything of that nature, no zafus or zabutons. It was back in the old days. The days of true grit. Just have a thin rush mat, and you had to sit without moving for an hour on this sort of thin rush mat on a concrete floor. And so this evening sitting there just go on forever and ever and ever, and it's really uncomfortable. But in the morning, it's just, time seems to fly by. My body's really comfortable, and it seems so much better. I wonder why that is. And the novice turned to me and said, "Well, it's because you're half asleep. That's why." You're completely unconscious through the whole thing, actually. 5 minutes after the sitting begins, you're totally out of it. Your nose is practically on the floor. And, I know I've got a very extensive nose, but it's obviously my kind of general droop was contributing to the whole thing. I said, "Oh, really?" He says, "Oh, yeah, you're completely gone." I thought I was quite wide awake. I felt really peaceful. And he said, and so then I got this sort of instruction about the mind can seem concentrated because it's the universe has shrunk to about 1% of its normal scope, and so that you're attentive to that 1%, but the other 99 is completely lost to us. So if we realize there's that kind of imbalance in the system, or that we are tensed up against some physical sensation, some kind of physical pain, we can there's different ways that we can work with it or react to it. So sometimes if we're trying to we've had the instructions, okay, so if we're slumped over and that feeling in our forehead is not the third eye opening, but it's it's my the front of my cushion pressing on my forehead. Or worse still, somebody else's back. And then meanwhile feeling, I think my heart chakra is opening. But it's usually on the front rather than the back. That's very strange. So you think, oh no, I'm supposed to wake up, or that, and I've got to relax. Okay, relax. So we have in a way, we're sort of taking the instruction and then trying to follow it, which is obviously not a bad thing. We're being faithful to what the guidance is, and we're trying to do the right thing. But as you might have noticed, that when we are sort of trying to conduct our meditation simply by following instructions or following an ideal or according to a system, there can be a mechanical or kind of clumsy, clunky quality to it. Does that sound familiar? Like painting by numbers. You get something like a landscape, but it's not really a painting. It's not really alive. So so similarly, this is I certainly found this. If I find I'm kind of slumped over, so when I'm tired, I always lean over to the right, because I've got a slightly dodgy right leg, so that my right hip tends to get tight, so that when I get dozy, then I get a sort of starboard list. Those who know me well are familiar with this. Ajahn Amaro's listing to starboard. Must have been a long day. So then I think, oh dear, I'm dozing off. Quick, straighten up. You straighten up by an act of will, or we're kind of just using muscles and an idea. Oh dear, I'm slumped over. I've got to straighten up. Or if we feel extra tension in the body, then we go, oh my shoulders are all tight. Quick, relax the shoulders. Relax the shoulders down. And we kind of trying to sort of adjust through the plan. That there's a sort of system that we're trying to follow. And that, I'm not. Well, I am trying to make fun of it. Well, not simply to make fun of that, but I'm exaggerating it to just make a point. But what you find is that there's a different way that we can operate, whereby when we notice that the system is out of balance, when there's some clinging going on, either clinging to a dull state or an agitated state or a tense state or whatever it might be, that we can bring about an adjustment or allow an adjustment or a balancing out to happen just through applying attention. So you might have noticed, like if you say notice there's your leg is tensed up against an uncomfortable feeling, and that the body is tense there, then if you just allow the attention to go to that spot, and in a way that if you don't do anything, you, the meditator, the managing director of this life, that you don't do anything, but you just allow the attention to go to that spot, then what happens? There's a noticing of, wow, this is really tense. Things are out of balance here. And then, without you having to do anything, it kind of straightens out on its own. It relaxes on its own. Do you see what I mean? Does that make sense? So, like, okay, I'll give you an example. So, okay, here I am, slumped over. Now, I am not going to do anything. So this is just then bringing attention to the body in a kind of caved-in state. I didn't do anything. I'm not pretending. But that's just by... I'm not kind of claiming to have any kind of special abilities. This is the same for everybody. This is the same for all of us. That if we just bring attention to where there is clinging going on, then that simple power of clarity, the clear knowing, brought to that place wherever the clinging is happening, then that quality then is the very agent whereby the clinging is enabled to be let go of, to be abandoned. So it's not magical. Well, it is magical in a way, but it's completely ordinary. This is how our system balances itself. So with meditation, a lot of what is very helpful to us is just to, for the meditator, to get out of the way. Me, the doer. Me, the concentrator. Me, the breather. Me, the walker. Me, the person developing mindfulness and wisdom. It's allowing the me element, me the doer, me the agent, to step aside or to not be in control, and then just to see how that quality of awareness and wise attention brings about that kind of balancing of the system. Does that make sense? So then, by getting familiar with how that works with something as tangible and obvious as the body, we can begin to see how that can also work with mental states, with uncomfortable or painful states of our emotions or feelings in kind of more subtle realm of the mind clinging to thoughts or ideas or memories or hopes or moods. And that in exactly the same way, when we find the mind absorbed into a good story or carried away with a wonderful memory, or re-editing a wonderful memory to make it even just a little bit better. Anyone ever done that? I spent about the first 5 or 6 years of my monastic life rewriting my past. Just kind of minor adjustments here and there to make it how it might have been or could have been or nearly was, and reworking old arguments so that I won them. And then figuring out scenarios for the future. And we can spend an incredible amount of time doing that sort of thing. But when you see the mind then pursuing, grabbing hold of a thought or a feeling, a mood, whether it's an excitement or whether it's painful feeling, like a feeling like grief or a sense of loss or regret, a kind of aching pain in the heart. Can be something that we've done that was really stupid and hurtful to others, or some kind of great loss in our life, something very sad and tragic. There's a whole array of different feelings that we experience. The mind so easily buys into that, just like the pain in our back or our knee or our shoulder, or whatever it might be, that kind of aching joints. That the mind seems to have every good reason to buy into that, to absorb into that. This is a real problem. I really shouldn't have done that. It was really a terrible thing that I did. I'm a bad person. And then seeing that, well, that's just a judgment, and right now there's a feeling of regret, and this is painful. It's a painful emotion. And then the mind seeing that this is the clinging to a painful emotion, clinging to the feeling of regret, clinging to a judgment about me being a bad person. That's what's happening. That's what's here. And exactly the same way, we can just, without trying to say, no, I'm not a bad person. All dhammas are not self. Not me, not mine. And trying to apply a formula of reflection on uncertainty or impermanence or not self, which again can be an extremely skillful thing to do. But if we're just, in a sense, trying to get rid of that feeling by applying the tools of wise reflection, it can easily drift into a desire to get rid of, or trying to make ourselves sort of fit a false model. But instead, if we just notice, this is the feeling of clinging to regret, this is the heart clinging to grief, or this is the heart really wanting that fantasy to be true. This is the mind making a really good plan. The delightfulness of a really, really good, viable plan. This is what I'm going to do. And the feeling of gratification that comes with that. Just noticing that. And without trying to get rid of it, without trying to make any judgment about it, just in the same way, bringing the attention of feeling the stickiness of that, feeling the quality of clinging that's there, and just by allowing that sense of full awareness, bringing that full light of awareness to bear on that clinging, then in exactly the same way we can begin to notice that the grip loosens on its own. Anyway, it's really hard to sustain a good cling when all the lights are on. It's like you can't. It's like you need you need it to keep moving and changing. You need dim lights to get away with it. It's like in bars and pubs they have that dim red lighting, so you can't really see all the wrinkles. You can kind of hide a lot. When those restaurants, I don't know if they have them in England, but in the States they deliberately have uncomfortable seats and bright lighting in McDonald's restaurants so that you won't stay there more than the absolute minimum time, because you don't want to be there. It's too raw. So that the clinging is just the same. It's not comfortable with all the lights on. Mara loves dim lighting. Get away with a lot more when the lights are down. So if everything is bright, then it's hard to keep that going. So similarly, when we just, without any judgment, just bring the attention to that and just think, and just to notice like the feeling of that clinging, that I really like this. I really want this to be true. Or I'm really sure that I'm a bad person. I love to hate myself. I really enjoy that. And just feeling that, just the feeling of that clinging, that identification, and then the more fully conscious it is, the harder it is to sustain. It's like you can't keep it going. And if just the feeling itself is not clear enough, one of the practices that Ajahn Sumedho has often taught, and that probably many of you have done retreats with him or listened to Dhamma talks of his, that I find extremely helpful, is just using the capacity of reflection to spell out what it is that the mind is doing, the judgments that we make. So it's just to use verbal thought to be able to say to ourselves, I really like this. I want the end of the retreat to come. I want to go home. I want to stay here forever. I don't care about my husband. I don't care about my bills. I hate Theravada Buddhism. I hate my mind. I want to be somebody different. I'm probably the most accomplished meditator in the room. Whatever it might be that the mind is throwing up, I'm kind of exaggerating somewhat, but just to be able to spell out those attitudes, so that we are not because we're kind of actually trying to make ourselves believe them, but by that. What do you mean? I am the most accomplished meditator in the room. What's wrong with thinking that? It's true. It's by spelling it out. It's rather like the lights in McDonald's. You sort of crank up the illumination, and you can't get away with it. The illusion is broken. It's like you can see what the conjurer is doing. You can see the strings and the sellotape. You can see how the trick is done, and so we can't really fall for it. So that Ajahn Sumedho would teach this kind of practice. So just you're not saying it out loud, otherwise it gets a bit noisy in here. But just to be able to say that the unsayable, like you're trying to be a sort of good Buddhist and practice loving kindness and trying to sort of do the right thing with the meditation, but just to be able to say to yourself, I hate pain. I wish this wasn't here. Then, in a way, by saying the unsayable, thinking the unthinkable, then we're actually find that quality of wisdom which is beyond that, which sees beyond that, which recognizes, well, this is just a feeling, this is just a thought, that this too is just a reaction that doesn't have to be believed in or define the way that we function in life. That too, and we find that the pain is that much more. We're much more able to let go of it. So it's not that I'm suggesting that we make the meditation a whole sort of chatty commentarial process, spelling out every mind movement. But as we go along, and particularly as time goes by, and as and when the mind starts to calm down, this can be such a helpful tool, just to keep track of all of those inner voices, like that I was talking about at the beginning of the evening. Just being able to name what's going on, that the attitudes that are being formed there, and by highlighting it in that way, that very expression of it somehow enables the heart to release it, to let go of it, to realize, oh, it's just another one of them. It's just another formation. It comes, it goes, it changes. Aha. So sometimes we might have a sense of clarity with the grosser forms of mind states, like a wave of anger, or a wave of egotism, or a plan for the future that is not going to happen. But then it's that's just thinking about the future. Let go, and then we might be able to let go of that. But then what follows along after it, the judgment that my mind is really pretty chaotic. I'm a pretty hopeless meditator, actually, but never mind, I'll keep going. That kind of thing slips by without even being noticed, right? But of course it's true, right? So sometimes the grosser ones get all the attention, and meanwhile the sort of the footnotes and the little sort of running commentary of I am this person, I am like this, and I've got this problem, and I've got that problem, and I've got to do this, and I shouldn't be like that. Those two are just mental formations that are completely empty, just as the reminiscences of the past, the nostalgia, the regrets, the anger, the planning for the future, and so forth. So just to be able to train our hearts to notice all of those different dimensions of the mental world and bring them into the same fold, just hold them in the same way. Even this seemingly matter-of-fact judgment of, yes, I've got a very busy mind. I'm a person with a doubt problem. I'm a very fear-oriented person. That's what I am. Just to say, well, yeah, there might be a grain of truth in that, but still, it's just a judgment. It's still a sankhara that arises and ceases. It's not solid. There's nothing absolutely there. It's empty. It comes and goes and changes. It's just another pattern of nature. So these are just a few thoughts I offer for your reflection this evening, and please take whatever is useful, and anything that is not, please leave aside. And the main aim, of all of these teachings, all of the practices, is really just the simple quality of heart that we discover in the moment of not clinging. So amidst all of the explanations and verbiage and practices. If that's all that we remember and that's all we do, great. Just to notice that. And the clinging is the problem, and freedom is possible. And that when the clinging stops, it gets better. So after this thought reflection this evening. We can finish the evening with the